Hello everyone and welcome to a new GizChina Germany review. Today I will cover a device from one of my favorite brands from China. The phone is called the H1 and is made by Cubot. Now you might wonder why Cubot is one of my favorite brands despite it being not the most popular one. I'll tell ya, the reason simply is that Cubot often does things very right. They kinda do things after the principle less is more, and this means that they might not use the latest high-end specs on their phones, but they try to make everything work flawlessly and also are up to a decent quality standard. Often enough, this worked out quite well in the past, and this is why I love Cubot phones in general. Now with the H1, Cubot for the very first time created a battery monster. The handset offers the insane capacity of 5200 milliamps, and the remaining specs are entry level, but that's not a bad thing since it means that power consumption stays low, thus offering you an even longer battery life. But there are some more outstanding features, and I will talk about them right in this review as well as about some flaws, so come on and join me. So when you order the Cubot H1, you get the phone inside this golden brownish cardboard box, which is the current standard packaging design Cubot do use for all of their phones. When you open it for the first time, here on top the phone would be placed inside this plastic bag, and below we will see a little flap containing a quick start guide telling you how to open the phone's rear, insert the battery and your SIM cards. And once we move that flap away, we see the other accessories of the device, and that's one protective film, one nicely printed quick start guide with lots of pictures inside telling you how that stuff works. And there also is a greeting card asking you to do a review of the phone and tell the world about how great Cubot is, and obviously also give feedback to them so they can make their products even better. So that's a really nice thing, I think. And we also have some more compartments down there which contain one OTG adapter as well as the micro USB cable of the phone. And here we find the 2 ampere charger of the Cubot H1. Design wise, the Cubot H1 looks typical for a budget phablet of today's age, which obviously means that there is a 2.5D glass covering the front of the device. Below the screen there are 3 navigation buttons which are actually back illuminated, and the upper area houses the phone receiver, some sensors and the front camera, as well as a notification LED which you see flashing in blue here a little bit. Actually the camera can't capture that right now because the light is shining on the white area. Anyway, it's there. So the sides look like they are covered by a metal frame, but that's actually not the case. It's plastic and it's a blatant copy of the Samsung Galaxy S6 frame in my opinion. The only pieces of metal you will find on the sides of this phone are this decoration stripes and the buttons on both sides of the device. The buttons, by the way, feel very nice and do not move at all, which is a pro and leaves a little quality impressions. The ports have been placed on the upper area of the phone, so we find a 3.5mm headphone jack and one micro USB port and also one infrared blaster here. The back is covered by a plastic-made back cover that feels a little cheap due to its strange texture that you can see here. I would have preferred some matte cover instead, but actually this cover is pretty tough and can be bent a lot without any damage, which is a proof for a quality kind of plastic they used on here. By the way, the same applies to the phone in general, since even though the whole thing is made from plastic, you can't bend it at all, just a little bit, but it doesn't do any damage. So it's a pretty good build quality. I really like that. There are no gaps, sharp edges, and well, it's a pretty solid put together phone, I think. So Cubot actually stuck to their quality principles here. Now, one real highlight of the Cubot H1 is that you actually can remove the battery despite it being a battery monster. Usually those battery monsters don't offer you the possibility of replacing the battery, but here you simply pop the cover off and take the cell out if you like to do so. It is really simple, and well, of course, if the cell is broken or if for some reason 2 or even more days of battery life isn't enough for you, you can carry around a second battery with you. So Cubot proved that it is indeed possible to build large replaceable cells into phones while not letting them get too thick, since, as you probably are able to see right now, the phone is pretty thin. It's only 9.3 millimeters in thickness, which is not that much indeed. Okay, that is without the camera, but still it's nice. If you take the camera into account, it's about 1 centimeter. Cubot H1 comes with a 5.5-inch display with 720p resolution, and it's an IPS/OGS panel, but unfortunately it doesn't seem to be a high quality one. I mean, it boasts a good contrast level, nice colors, and even brightness and viewing angles are good, but you can see the pixels way more than with most other 720p 5.5 inches these days. That's a bit sad and is especially noticeable when reading. Something else I dislike are those huge bezels you can see right here. Okay, it probably would have looked ugly if those were white, but they could have solved that in a different way by using a larger panel, 5.7 inches for example. This way they could have cut down on the bezels without changing the device's size. The touchscreen, on the other hand, works fine here. It's fairly precise and the surface is very smooth, so your fingers will glide on it easily. There is a bit of an input lag, but it's not affecting user experience. It also appears to be pretty scratch proof, since I don't have any marks on the screen till today, despite using it without any protection all the time. The Cubot H1 doesn't boast the latest high-end specs and comes with the MediaTek MT6735P instead, which is a quad-core 64-bit SoC clocked at 1 GHz, but that actually is a nice thing, since this SoC is very power saving and along a huge battery makes up for some amazing screen on time. Other specs of the device are 2 GB of RAM, 16 GB of internal memory, 1 microSD card slot, and there also is a working magnetic compass, which I can't tell that often enough isn't always or isn't the case most of the time actually with devices within the sub $200 area. In benchmarks, the Cubot H1 reached typical results for a MT6735P device, which means around 20k points in Antutu. That's not a high score, but surprisingly isn't noticeable during daily use. The system runs pretty smooth and so do apps. You will only notice some lags while scrolling through applications that display a lot of content, for example. Gaming obviously isn't something the H1 does handle very well, so you might want to look elsewhere if you are a sucker for the latest high-end Android games. Something I personally noticed with Cubot phones very often so far is how well those guys optimize their software. They manage to get Android running smooth or even on outdated chipsets, which I was able to witness on the Cubot P9 with a dual-core SoC and also on the X11 that came with a MT6592 SoC clocked at 1.5 GHz. Exactly the same has been done with the Cubot H1 once again. This phone isn't the first device with a MT6735P SoC that I am using, but it definitely is the one that runs the smoothest on Android 5.1 so far. They did a good job with optimizing the RAM usage, which comes handy when doing multitasking on 2 GB of RAM. And another thing I really like is that Cubot fixed the stage fright security hole out of the box. And there is also no spyware or Trojans included, so security is pretty good on this phone. There is a serious flaw though, and that's missing features like off-screen gestures. Cubot never included such features with their phones, and I had a talk with them after reviewing the X11. Unfortunately, they simply don't seem to care, which is a pity. Even Xiaomi implemented off-screen gestures recently, so Cubot should start to think about it. In my opinion, their minimalistic approach is going a little too far there. Basically, the Cubot H1 does a good job with reception quality. Signal strength along mobile networks is great, and even LTE band 20 is supported. So why do I say basically? Well, it's Wi-Fi and GPS that do cause issues. It sometimes happens that the signal strength of the Wi-Fi connection is going down for no reason, even if I sit right next to the router. Along with that goes a serious bandwidth drop, and disconnecting and reconnecting actually solves this issue, but still that's something seriously annoying. Luckily it doesn't happen too often, but still it is a software bug that needs to be addressed as soon as possible. Also, GPS performs well, but only in theory, with a fast fix for up to 12 satellites and an accuracy of 4 meters according to GPS Toolbox, but in reality it doesn't perform so well. During navigation, the phone often goes off track, resulting in nonsense navigation advices. That also appears to be software related, so I really hope it will be fixed with the next update. The audio quality during phone calls is pretty good on this phone. It sounds a little tinny, I admit that, but besides of that it is loud and pretty clear, making it very easy to understand. The media speaker on the rear unfortunately only sounds average. It doesn't offer much bass, but at least it's loud and does not distort, and so it's pretty okay for some music on the go or watching YouTube videos. The only strange thing is that the volume control seems to have a little bug. The speaker volume remains very low until you reach the last 3 volume levels, where it suddenly becomes very loud. Headphones sound pretty decent on the Cubot H1 for a phone in this price range. The audio is pretty clear and there are no background noises, but of course whoever wants to squeeze out more will have to use Viper for Android to fine-tune the audio settings. Headphones with remote controls work without any problem on this phone. Cubot never made much fuss about the cameras of their devices, and they still don't do that with the H1, but guess what? Pretty much all Cubot devices I owned so far came with decent cameras, and the H1 is no exception really, and I would love to know which sensor they use. In daylight, the camera creates some very decent shots with lots of details and nice colors. Even in low light it performs pretty well and doesn't create much noise. The LED flash also is okay, and it is enough to light up close-up pictures. The thing that impressed me the most, however, is how fast the focus and shutter works. It gets the right focus within like 0.5 seconds, and hitting the shutter button results in an instant image. That's something you usually expect from high-end devices, but not on a budget phablet. A little disappointing, however, is the performance during video recording. The videos don't look sharp and the colors seem too intense to me. Also, the audio suffers from a lack of volume. The front camera takes pictures with 5 megapixels, but isn't that good too. Especially in low light, it takes pretty noisy pictures. Now let's talk about the most important thing of the Cubot H1, and that of course is the huge 5200 mAh battery. Now the first question you might want to get answered is if the capacity is actually real, and I can tell you, yep, it is, and you already notice it when taking the battery out. It's very thick and huge, and it makes up for the most part of the phone's weight, and as you can see, it's almost as big as my hand. And yes, you heard right and you see right, the battery can be replaced actually, like with a normal phone. And that's something you cannot do on pretty much all battery monsters, and this is a real pro of the Cubot H1. So how does it perform during daily use? Well, amazing, I would say. I really can do whatever I want and get through one day easily. I can pull the brightness to 100% all day long, use GPS, play games, surf the internet, use the camera, and still have a hard time getting below 40% until midnight. For me as a power user, the battery lasted around 2 days without the need of recharging it, and I still had 20% left after those 2 days. The pure screen on time you can reach with this handset is more than 17 hours, which is insane. Unfortunately, Geekbench battery test doesn't save the result since it assumes it is a fake result, so I cannot show you a screenshot this time. Amazing doesn't stop there though, since the Cubot H1 also does support fast charging. Cubot didn't tell me which technology they use, but I believe it is MediaTek's Pump Express using the 2 ampere power supply and USB cable that comes with the phone. It only takes 1 hour to charge the battery from 20 to 70%. After 2 hours, the battery will be fully charged. That is pretty amazing considering that some phones take longer to charge even smaller batteries with only 2000 milliamps or so. It also means that you will be able to drop a few hours of phone calls after just a few minutes of recharging, which definitely could come handy in emergency situations. So all in all, I have to say that I am really amazed by the battery performance of the Cubot H1, and I believe this is currently one of the best battery monsters around these days. Alright, final verdict time it is, and guess what, I actually hate that part. I mean, the Cubot H1 did a lot of things right, but I still can't give a full purchase recommendation because of those few bugs interfering with reception quality. Everything else is very nice and well worth the 160 bucks you pay for the Cubot H1. So if you're looking for a battery monster and can live with those mentioned flaws for now and take the risk they never get fixed, go for it, but everyone else should stay away for now, as sad as that is. So that's all from my side for now. Thanks for watching this review. I hope you enjoyed it. If there are any questions left, don't hesitate to drop a comment down below. If you like what we are doing at GizChina Germany, subscribe to our channel and follow us over at Facebook, Google+, and Twitter. You will now see a performance demo of the phone, and I say bye bye, over and out.